Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for episode number 40 of AppScan Tuesday. This is amazing that we've gone so far. And after last week episode, I decided that we are on a roll and I want to bring my guest star on the show. Yes, you probably know, not talking about Florian this time, but I'm talking about Peter Lee. Peter Lee helped me in June. He came to the show, showed, I think it was how to bring Java code into AppScan Source. It was actually the best viewed episode outside of the launch event that we had, recent one. And we also had another episode in August, again about AppScan Source. Don't kid yourself, Peter can show everything, but I'm bringing him for AppScan Source all the time because for me, he's my subject matter expert for that. Thank you, Peter, for joining.
Hey, Ton. Thanks for having me here. Nice to be back.
Nice to have you back, and I'm happy that your little kid allowed this time to have this. Peter is a proud father now, and seems to be tired maybe, but
Yeah, I I put a lot of makeup on just to hide the panda eyes.
yeah. So Peter, we thought about what we are going to show today. Didn't want to show automation. We did a lot of automation recently, and we went to the idea of, okay, you run scans, you need to do also something with the results, and you need to know what to focus on and what not. So in V10, we did something amazing, and we brought the cloud engine to the on-prem. Well, the SaaS engine that we had in the cloud to the on-prem with all its capabilities, and you're going to talk to us about the IFA in it.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. I think one of the things that's been kind of overlooked when people are using AppScan Source is IFA. A lot of people don't know that IFA is in the engine itself as well. Like you said, it used to be in the cloud as part of the engine for SaaS, but we brought it down to the on-prem solution, and along with it, we brought the AI capability into the on-prem for AppScan Source.
Yeah.
That's something where, a lot of people should be cheering for and really excited for, because again, we spend so much time in triaging and just, people don't know how much time it saves you to use AI like IFA to help you with that.
Yeah.
So,
And for those who are not familiar, which would be surprising, but IFA stands for Intelligent Finding Analytics, and it uses machine learning capabilities trained by our AppScan experts, by our security experts, on identifying which of the issues is actually exploitable, not just in theory, and their priorities, their level of severity, which one you should look at first. Basically, doing the triage work for you. And to best show it, Peter will do an amazing thing. He will show us the before, what you need to do, and after the magic
yes,
happens.
yep, that is correct. Yeah. So before I kind of jump into that, to show you guys what IFA is all about and how to use it, I'll show you like a practical example of it. But before we do that, maybe I'll just show a few slides, Aton, and
Cool.
just to
Yeah,
let everyone know.
I agree. We need to show what IFA is and what it means. Going to your side.
Okay. Yeah. So, in AppScan Source version 10, we definitely have what we call the IFA, the machine learning that we brought from the cloud and down into the on-prem solution. And so, it is really what we call it, your security advisor. And there's a reason why we call it that, because, as we know, static analysis is quite noisy. Just the nature of the engine itself. It doesn't matter if it's AppScan Source or any other vendors you see out there. Static analysis in general is just very noisy when it generates, results. And again, sometimes you would get, 1,000 findings. I've seen customers that we work with that go up to like upwards of 200,000 findings, which is not, uncommon. And for those, that have 200,000 findings, it takes a lot of time. When I say time, it literally takes weeks, takes days to basically go through and find out what are the true positive findings and what are some false positives inside of those findings.
And
So
the reason is because static analysis is a theoretical tool that looks at everything in the code and will call out any potential vulnerability, but many of them cannot be exploited. So
exactly, yeah, yeah. So again, I mean that so again, that's the reason why from AppScan here we found a solution to this, and the solution is IFA, right? So IFA, just like what Eitan mentioned before, is called Intelligent Finding Analytics, right? That's what it stands for, and it basically helps you to reduce all the false positives. So going through your findings and finding that needle in the haystack, and seeing what are the top critical vulnerabilities that you need to focus on, right? And again, any developer does not want a security advisor to provide 200,000 findings to them, right? That's just not something that they will take in and say, oh great, I'm gonna work on that. So you have to kind of give them like a very finite set of vulnerabilities that are true positives, and IFA can definitely do that for you, right? We also have ICA, which is Intelligent Coding Analytics, and basically this is the opposite of IFA, which helps you to eliminate any false negatives. So it helps you to find more things in this case. So if there's any frameworks like standard frameworks that we don't cover, any of those standard libraries inside of that framework, we may be able to help you to do a quick auto markup and then help you to find additional findings inside of your source code. So again, one is to help you reduce any noise or false positive, and the other one is to help you to find and investigate into further if there's anything that you've missed. So with the two combined, like really this is like utopia for static analysis, where security analysts are now going to save tons of time from weeks to days, now down to seconds, to just looking for those finite sets of vulnerabilities that are more critical to the developers. And then to take it one step yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, by the way, I want to defend those static analysis tools out there, not just us, but any. When we are saying false positives, it's in the context of can it be exploited in the application. A static analysis tool looks at the code. It cannot know if it can be exploited on its own by the technology itself. It will call out anything that is suspicious. Then something else needs to validate that, and this is what IFA will do for you here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, to take it one step further, we have fixed groups. So once we help you do the triage, then we put it into a fixed group where we tell you where's the bang for your buck. So basically, if you go fix in this one area of APIs, and then you'll fix 10 or 20 vulnerabilities at once. So we not only help you to do triage, but at the same time, we basically kind of put it into a fixed group to tell you where to start.
Yeah,
so
we want to make you more efficient in all this work, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So having said all that, I want to kind of show you guys how this works. And so let me flip over to my demo. Okay, so this is AppScan Source for analysis. And what I'm going to show you is a very simple example of how you would do a typical manual triage, right? And this is a very simple example of a SQL injection. So I have a source code here that I brought in. It's a Java source code. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick scan. Okay. And, in this example here, you will see very easly that, how do we typically go about in AppScan Source to do triaging? And this is a typical work of, maybe a security champion who's typically a dev lead, and this person will come into and do some scanning for the development team. And once the results come up, they'll go into their triage view and start looking for any false positives or any false negatives. Okay. So very quickly here, it's going to end, and it's just kind of generating some auto markups here, and that's where the ICA comes in. You also see in the console here that later on, it's going to apply machine learning. And so in the console here, it'll say apply machine learning, and that's where IFA comes in. But I had IFA turned off for now. So the apply machine learning is basically like, putting in the ICA. So ICA is always turned on just because we always want to find more things. So that's not turned off. But I've already turned off IFA first just to show the example of how we do a manual triage. Okay, so here's the results after you run the scan, that simple SQL injection example. And what you see in here is, what Eitan said before, like, AppScan Source is going to give you all the different possibilities of where these vulnerabilities might happen. So if you look into the suspect column, basically this is where AppScan is, suspecting that there is two vulnerabilities called SQL injection, right? If we take a look at this and double click on that, you'll very quickly see that in this, what we call the data flow or trace diagram, it will show you how untrusted data comes into the source code and then where it gets executed. And in this case, you can see that this external source is an untrusted source coming in, or input coming in. And when it gets to the end, what we call the sink, right? This is where it gets executed, which is at the database level. So, in between, we're just looking for to see if there's any sanitization routines, or if the developer has looked for, sanitize the input that's coming in to the source code. And if there isn't, then there's a potential SQL injection, because the last statement that we basically execute, the last API, is a SQL query, right? So when we look at the data flow analysis, it's very clear to us that there is a source and there's a sink, but what's in between is what's really important for us to see. And as you can see, anything that's color-coded just means that AppScan Source has knowledge or has a rule for each of these node or these APIs. So AppScan Source understands all these different APIs that are happening here with the colors. But the one that's grayed out is the one that AppScan is not sure of. So we can see it because, again, it's an API, but because it's code, it's not a standard, library that we use in Java. This is something that a developer would code. Then this API would be grayed out. So what we need to do as a triage, right? We need to go in and validate, is this API definitely doing something in terms of sanitization, right? Is it sanitizing the password in this case here? Is it sanitizing the password that's coming in, right? And if it is, so we go and check out what the validate API is doing. If it is, then all we really need to do is just do a right click and just tell AppScan Source that this is a validation and encoding routine. Okay, so if you mark it as that, very quickly you can apply it to this project, and so that you will write a custom rule right on the right-hand side here to the custom rule database. And basically that just means that next time that AppScan scans this, AppScan is going to know that this is a validation routine. And if it is, then there's no problem with an untrusted source coming in, because if it comes in, we are going to sanitize it, and then it can go to the SQL query very safely, right? So in this example here, I've done a very quick and simple triage process where I validated this particular vulnerability. I can go to the second one here, and this is the same idea. So I'm going to double click on the node, and it'll take me to the line of code. And when I get to here, it's the same thing. This time we're looking at it from a username as the source coming in, right? So the source is the username. And if we look at the validate API, this is just something that a developer put together, right? This is called an inline sanitization. So it is a sanitization API. So what I can do again is mark it up as a validation encoding routine, hit OK, apply to the project, and then that writes the second rule there, okay? So once we've done that, then I've pretty much finished my triage here for these two vulnerabilities. And I'm only doing this for 2 out of the 6 here. And you can only imagine that if I have 100,000 findings here, I have to go through this multiple times. And it definitely will take days and weeks to go through it, right? So if I, once I've done this, then I go back to configuration, I rerun the scan, okay? What will happen now is that those two vulnerabilities should go away because I've marked them as safe, as in there are sanitization in the source code for that data flow. And so that shouldn't be a problem anymore, right? So if I do that, and it's gonna do a quick rescan here. And, most of you should be anticipating that those two vulnerabilities should go away.
You're talking about thousands, but it's very common to have hundreds when we're just getting small microservice. So it's not out of whack, the numbers that Peter is talking about here. It's common, sadly.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people are like, really? 100,000? Like, and I'm just like, yeah, it's very common to see that. So, okay, so after I did the rescan, you can see that the two suspect findings went away, and we still have one medium and one low to kind of take a look at and see if those are actually true positives, right? But the whole idea here is that now I've kind of narrowed it down to just the 4 findings here. So I had 6 before, and now I have 4. So again, I have to kind of redo this, and I have to kind of go into here and then do a manual triage on the rest of the other 4 findings that are here, right? So again, you can see that this is an ongoing process for triage, and that could take a lot of time to do, right? Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll go back to the configuration and I'll reset everything. And this time, what I'll do is I'll basically show you guys using IFA how easily it is to do what I just did manually, right? So I wrote some custom rules and did a rescan. So this time I'll delete all the custom row entries, which means that I'm starting from a clean slate, and I'll do a quick scan again. And in this case, you'll see that we'll go back to the original of the 2 suspect findings. Okay, so let's take a look at it. And this time should be pretty simple. It's going back to the original 2 suspect findings, the exact same 2 SQL injection that we saw earlier. So in this case, I'm not going to do a manual triage again. What I want to show you is the power of IFA here. Okay, so I'll go back to my configuration view. Under Edit and Preferences, you can turn on the Enable Intelligent Finding Analytics IFA. Just check the box, click Apply.
And that's by default on,
and then
right,
okay.
Peter? By default,
yes,
IFA
by
on.
Default it is on, yeah. Yeah. So I turned it off because of this example here. So in the beginning, so that's why I said I turned it off. But yeah, I mean, if you want, you can turn it on and off. But for me, I just wanted to show you that once you turn it on, I do a right click in Scan Project, and this time,
yeah, just to make sure it's clear.
Yeah.
The only reason that Peter showed without is demoing IFA is really hard. Everything happens behind the scenes, and you get it like a magic show. Hey, here's the rabbit. We want to show you behind the scenes what happened before. If you weren't using IFA, we are not encouraging you not to use IFA. We are definitely want you to keep the default as it is and enjoy the value that it brings.
Yeah. Too many people, when they look at it and go, "Wow, what does IFA do?" And then just like Eitan said, it really takes a matter of seconds to do triage, this machine learning, whereas typically it would take days to do by hand. So let me open up this assessment now, and you can see that IFA went beyond just doing triage on the 2 suspect findings, but it also did for the other 3 other findings as well. So it narrows it down to just one single finding here. And again, the whole point here is that, IFA did its job. Now, if you really wanted to see what IFA filtered out, you can go to the Excluded Findings tab right here, and you can see that IFA has filtered out these findings. right? And if you go to here, IFA also gives you a very good explanation on under the notes section on why it took it out. And again, we're using probability here that this one finding here is not as interesting because maybe again, IFA was able to figure out the fact that there's an inline sanitization API in between. So you can see that it's smart enough to do what I just did manually. And as a human, I was thinking of, oh, okay, this is a sanitization routine. But in here, IFA did that in just a matter of seconds using this machine learning. So.
And this is new in on-prem starting from V10. So if you're not on version 10, a very good reason to move to it. Of course, our cloud customers just enjoy it by default. This is how it works, the cloud solution. Maybe it's time to bring you back, Peter. Thank you for coming back, Peter. You know what we forgot to show? From the first time that you showed how to bring Java and then you did another one, we saw the number of languages growing. We could do that also here because we've added a few since August to this version, and 10.04 is coming later this month with a few more languages that I don't want to steal Florence thunder this time from our launch, so I won't mention that. Thank you for a great demo, as usual. Just curious,
No
when you work with customers to upgrade them to V10 or hear them after talking about V10, how excited are they about it? Do they realize or meh?
Yeah, I think a lot of customers that whenever I present V10, we just had a workshop session this week on that on V10, and a lot of customers had they were like, wow, I didn't know you guys had so many features since you moved over from IBM, and really, when I showed them the list of the languages for AppScan Source that we support, the list of features that we added into standard and enterprise, they were just they were blown out of their minds because it's just like, before we didn't have that many features in a quarter.
Yeah.
So and now we're already at version 10.03, right? So from version 10 to 10.03, it's just a matter of several quarters, and we're so many versions in already. So yeah.
And 10.04 is coming later this, as I said, later this month. 10.05 will be a really interesting one, actually, that I'm not going to talk much about it this time, but we will in the future. So thank you very much, Peter, for coming again. I'm sure we will have you in the show again, and bye-bye for now.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Eitan. Thanks for having me.
I will include the video on Peter's side on the top left, videos from his previous, actually the other left. Yeah, it's like a mirror here, the other side.
This side.
Where it will point to the video that we recorded, the last one. And of course, don't forget to register. Click on the AppScan icon down there to register to subscribe and see more videos. Until next time, bye-bye.
Ciao. See you guys.